This is the annual Empowered panel, and this year we'll be discussing Afrofuturism. And this panel will explore cultural, technical, and speculative themes that represent Afrofuturism and Black comics, both in the present and what it could be like in the future. And joining me today are Joseph Woods, Chris Robinson, Antoinette Van Slightman, and all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, Greg Burnham. and I'll and I'll let my esteemed panel introduce themselves as well. Let them know what you guys are all about, and also let them know what your favorite superpower is. I will start with Greg. Your favorite superpower?
Testing, testing. Can y'all hear me? Kind of low. I can't put it closer. Can you? I won't. Okay. My name is Greg Burnham. I am a writer, sometimes a publisher. I do comics mostly and children's books as well. Um, I have a series called Tuskegee Airs. I've written for DC Comics. Just different stuff. My favorite superpower? God, it seems like I should know this, right? Um, I guess maybe like flight. I would like to be able to fly. Oh, I could have done that. It would have been bad. Is that better? A little bit? Y'all want me to sing? Testing. That's good. I heard that.
Hi everyone, my name is Antoinette Van Slightman. I'm an artist, writer, and now a recently published mangaka with Viz Media. My manga One Shot Deep Seeker just came out Wednesday, so I'm actually debuting here for the first time. So we have actually early copy selling. And I'm also co-founder of my business with my sister, Broken Chalice Studios. And we prioritize Black and Brown women in books, writing, and film. And my favorite superpower, I'd say, is to stop time. That way I could get more done, because your girl's busy.
Hello, hello. Hey, everybody. My name is Chris Robinson. I'm a comic book editor and writer. I write Werewolf Frankenstein, and then I was the editor of All Negro Comics, America's first black comic. It's kind of a history lesson in that one. Thank you. My favorite superpower, probably like web slinging. Like I would like to, I don't. Is that a tech power? Is that a spider power? But I don't know. It looks like fun, right? I don't know. That's what I want to do. Depends on which movie. Yeah. Spider Verse, I guess. The Spider Verse version of web slinging. Yeah.
Hey folks, I'm Joseph Woods. I am the owner of the Comic Den based in LA. I am one of the few and many black owned comic book stores around. I am just privileged and honored to be amongst all these great minds and be amongst all you guys. So it's great to be here. I would say my biggest what my super I guess it would be like a Green Lantern to use imagination and willpower because then there's no limit to what you're capable of doing. So yeah, Green Lantern power.
Those are all good choices. As you can see, we got a pretty awesome panel up here. We got creators and a store owner. So those are some cool perspectives that we'll be able to listen to. My first question is, how do you personally define Afrofuturism? And when did you realize, or when did you first realize that you were working within the realm of Afrofuturism? I guess we'll start with Greg, or with Chris. Yeah.
Let's send it back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Afrofuturism. I guess, from a certain perspective, Only Your Comics is the first black comic book. So that's, the past. Bringing it into the present is sort of like an Afrofuturist way of thinking. I mentioned this briefly. I was a comic book editor for a long time, and I edited Black Panther, the Ta-Nehisi Coates run of Black Panther, and that was extremely Afrofuturist in terms of the tech of Wakanda and when eventually when the storyline takes them into space, literal space, right? So what does it mean to me? I mean, it's like something that we can aspire to, something that we can, as much as we see ourselves in the pages of these comics, like see ourselves in the pages of history to come. And I think that I feel really loud now. I just think that there's so much out there, and it's such a rich genre that I'm glad to be a part of, and more so glad to like read all the great stuff that other people put out. Honestly, a lot of great creators out there putting in incredible work in this field. So
I'd say I have a similar definition of Afrofuturism, where it's kind of bridging the past with like modern times, and then using that to reimagine our future. So in a way, kind of reconnecting our diaspora with the motherlands, but in a way that sort of encapsulates the genres that we know and love, like sci-fi and fantasy, and slipstream surrealism. And for me, like it's always been a part of my work, but I actually define a lot of my stuff as Afrocosmic, because while it is we are stepping forward to the future, I think there's a lot of integrity to our ancestral roots and past that I specifically take a lot of inspiration for in my one shot, and paying homage to those cultures who actually had a lot of advanced knowledge of like cosmology and science and technology without, stuff like AI or like advanced technology. And I wanted to celebrate that. And when I first discovered Afrofuturism, I think it's through events like these, was by engaging with other Black creators and reading other Black stories, I started to realize there's a whole category for this. There's a world, and we've only just grazed the surface, not just in comics, but in mainstream media in general. Like, there's so much we have to explore in this amazing genre. And Black Panther, for me, was like just the beginning. So I'm very excited to see more in the Afrofuturism space take off and find its home, especially amongst our communities.
That was fantastic. I really don't have to say anything, but not this voice. it's all trouble. How come it comes out when it's me? No, I'm playing. No, her answer was like fantastic. I think about like I remember, and you got to be a little bit older to remember Rickety Rocket. Um, to me, that was like that broke my brain as like a little kid, like seeing Black people in space. And so I look at Afrofuturism like Lovecraft Country, for instance. It took place in the past, but that felt like Afrofuturism. So I just feel like it's such a wide, like you said, it's like such a wide genre. We have to like really consider what we think Afrofuturism is. Um, with Tuskegee Heirs, like the book that kind of put me on the map, along with my bro Marcus Williams. Like it's definitely in the future. We have like the tech. It takes place towards the end of this century, so that was an easy one. But then I start to look at like other things that I produced, even like retelling, like reshaping things that happened in history, even or giving like a more Afrocentric perspective to it. Stuff that I love to do. So I don't know. Your answer was so good. It's like I would probably repeat it, but I wouldn't say it as smooth as you did. So yeah.
Is there anything
Pause.
you want to add, Joe?
Oh yeah, I can. I mean, I always got something to say. Is it a second?
More than a second.
Stop time, Antoinette.
Test. Oh.
Oh, that's
we
yeah,
go.
let me have that. Give me that.
Test,
one right
test. All right.
there. All right, folks. Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm a total comic book geek. We're so geek. I have a saying: you don't have to be a young geek or an old geek to be a soul geek. Afrofuturism in my POV, in my on Planet Joe, it is the future and the past in one big chemistry mixed in a formula. Because as a collector and a book owner, I see younger people wanting to read past books, and I find that very fascinating. I back bouncing off of what Chris was saying, the intergalactic empire of Wakanda, was done by Ta-Nehisi Coates, but I remember Stan Lee and Jack Kirby introducing that back in like the late like the 70s, late 60s, 70s and stuff like that. So just seeing the past coming into the future, and seeing our youth, but not just our youth going into what's new, but wanting to encounter what's old as well. And as just seeing that growth, seeing writers wanted to tap into the past to create future story arc. That's what Afrofuturism is to me, excuse me. But it's just a mixed blend combination of the future and the past coming together in one culmination.
My next question is liberation is a foundational and core concept in Afrofuturism. How does the concept of liberation shape the stories that you tell?
For me specifically, so the comic that I'm probably most well known for at this point is All Negro Comics #1, which is the repackaging of the first Black comic book company publishing the first Black comic. So it was Black cartoonists creating their own original characters. So in terms of liberation, they were literally breaking out of a system, an industry, that did not want them to publish that comic, and the self-determination and doing it for ourselves. We all self-published on the stage, and Joe is literally doing his own shop. Like it's like we're doing that is the liberation I think that a lot of us have to come find for ourselves, and I think that it shows up in my work, it shows up in all of our work. So sorry about that. Messy.
I think, for example, in my manga Deep Seeker, where I bring, as I say, the cosmos to the motherland, it's interesting that freedom's brought up because it really centers a story about a ragtag group of adrenaline-seeking desert gliders, but the desert is made out of space and cosmic matter, and they're kind of in this sort of conflict between seeking freedom and that feeling of adrenaline, but also in some ways being victims of it, and exploring that sort of nuance. And I like to explore liberation in terms of like character development and the arcs that I represent, and how the main character, T-Foot, has to find himself as a mixed race individual, which I also relate to as a mixed race person. And I kind of put that into the story, not seeing that in stories that I grew up reading. And liberation for me as a creator means the freedom to tell the stories that I never got to read and that I never got to see in the shelves, and sharing it with other creators and other people in the community. And I hope it's projected in the stories. That's always my goal. But I think in terms of what liberation means to me in Afrofuturism, it's that bridge of not being afraid and not being restrained by, the commercial industry and, I guess the barriers that are projected onto Black creators of like, what is the Black experience, what is a Black story, and what can it be? Because I think that it is a myriad, and that there's so many different arrays of stories that can be told, and there's so much left to be done in that aspect.
She's awesome. It makes it so much easier. Now it's I don't. Okay. Like liberation and storytelling is everything to me. I was thinking when I did my first project for DC Comics, I wrote an icon story, and I was able to take it back to like his origin pretty much, and just make up some stuff. They weren't even like whipping us or anything. And I wanted to include like the 1927 levee bombings in New Orleans. I lived in Louisiana a long time, so we know about this stuff, but a lot of people never heard about it. Remember when they were saying they bombed the levees in Katrina? There's a history of them doing that, like, and they've even admitted to some of it. So I'm like putting this in, and my artist is like, you think they're gonna let us do this? And I was like, we're not gonna ask, we're just gonna do it and then see what happens. And they loved the story, so they were like, no, go ahead. I don't even know if they knew it was actually based off of, real stuff. But yeah, that's the freedom to be able to tell the stories, so the people that come after us won't even be like flinching, when they want to tell their true stories, or even if it's all made up, just being able to say what we want and reach the people that we want to reach, like that's huge for me. And like the people that came before me, the Dwayne McDuffies, especially Dwayne McDuffie, like he's the person that made me feel like, oh, I could do this, and I can be myself when I do. So yeah, the liberation, freedom to tell your story is impactful, and a lot of people get to do it, but more marginalized people, we're just getting to that point where we can actually do it ourselves.
You sort of touched on a good point. When does it become much more than just representation and something else, something more?
I think that comes as soon as you are telling your story from a genuine perspective. So like sometimes people, like what we've seen is they would feel like, oh, let's put a Black character in here, or a Latino or Asian character in here, but it's kind of like representation, but you're doing it to like check a box. When you get to the point where you're doing it like it's just natural, like the first Caucasian character that I wrote was Superman, and that's because DC asked me to. I've never woke up and been like, I need to make something that's gonna attract the masses. I make something that I feel in my heart, and then if the people attach to it, then that's great.
Same question.
Sure.
I think for me, a big part of it is when you realize that, like he mentioned, not ticking that box. For me, it's story first. It's always about the characters. I have to love the story. I have to love the characters before I can move forward on a project, like regardless of race. And it's just natural for me to want to celebrate my heritage, my culture, my people. So it's not something that I feel like, oh, I have to do this because diversity. It's more so like, yeah, this is what I grew up with. These are the stories, the traditions that surrounded me. And it's not something I really think twice about. Versus, I think I see a lot in fantasy novels, prose books, and comic books, is it feels like the characters are just there to tick that box, to like fill that status quo. And then the writing is forsaken. And then the studios want to blame it on the fact that, oh, it's a Black story, it's not going to sell. Oh, it's got a female main character, that's why it's not selling. When it's really like the story is important, that's what people are there for, and that's what they're going to stay for, is do they feel attached to that character and to that storyline? And I think one thing that I really loved about working with Viz Media, and in particular my editor Sasaki-san, who's worked with a lot of original mangaka creators in Japan, was race wasn't really addressed. It was all about the story. He cared about what are these characters getting into? What is their growth arc? And for me, I'm like, that's amazing. Let's do it. Like, I can create a whole Afro-cosmic story about my heritage and like fantasies and things that I love. And I don't feel like I have to make it about race trauma, I can do things that I love to read about, which was sci-fi and fantasy. So to the original question, I think representation is always a factor, but I don't think it's everything that should be around it. It should always be about the stories and what you're trying to say through that story. And then the rest comes with it, which is like the icing on the cake.
Could you repeat the question? Just hit it again one more time.
Sure. Basically, like when it comes to when is the point of it becoming more than just representation,
Gotcha.
and it evolving into something else?
Totally. Okay, so what I want to highlight is we need they've already said great things, but I'll say beyond what we're bringing to the table, I also think that there needs to be some sort of buy-in from the larger structures out there. Greg, you were part of the Milestone Initiative, right? Okay, and when I was a Marvel editor, I started something called Marvel Voices, which was essentially very similar, and well, not exactly the same, but it existed to put us behind the pages to some degree. And I think that's when you sort of hit the next level, when there's buy-in on both sides. And I wish that more companies would do that in a real way. And I feel like we've kind of like we've extended past the interest in that for the moment. But give it, hopefully the pendulum will swing back in our direction, before long. But we as creators, we're doing everything we can. We're bringing stories that are true and dig deep and all that stuff. But I also want to see, for representation to really take off, we sort of need the structures out there, the larger publishers, the household names of it all, to kind of also make way. And speaking of my project, so I worked with Image Comics to bring my self-published book to a larger audience. So it's like, great, someone there felt like this is something that we could work together on and bring it to more people than I could on my own. So
wow, I think you guys did very well to answer those questions. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Honestly, I would like to go back to the whole thing of liberating. I think it's very liberating for these writers to have the freedom to write their stuff. And secondly, I think it's important that what Chris was just saying is that the big companies are in behind and supporting that. But to a third effect to that, it's not even about that, in my opinion. From my overall collecting and experiencing as a store owner, it's more about, I look at it like this: if Marvel and DC is doing well, I want them to do well. I want them to put out books that people are coming inside the store to buy, because you know what that does? That allows me to sell your stuff and your stuff, because while they're coming in to buy Absolute Batman, for example, they're coming in, they're not just into that, they're into other stuff. They want to find out what's new out there, and this is where these great minds, these great creativities that these individuals are coming up with, get a chance to shine. So where I think that most of the lack comes from is from some bookstore owners. They're not pushing that stuff to the front line and saying, hey, have you read this book? Have you checked out this writer? Have you seen what this person is doing? Because at the end of the day, if you read her book, if you read Greg's book, or if you read Chris, it's no better than what they're putting out on the shelf over at Marvel or DC. Actually, it's either better. It's better than what they're doing, because it's more heart and felt, and you can actually personalize yourself with what's going on inside of a story arc that they're writing, more than you can personalize yourself what's going on with some of the stuff that these other writers are doing. But it's just not us on the owners of bookstores aren't really helping that stuff. So if Chris gave me his book and I was another bookstore owner besides myself, I would just put his book on the shelf and hopefully that readers would come in there and look for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I've been looking for all Negro comics, but Chris knows when he puts a book in my store and people are overlooking at my local writer and creator section, I'm coming from behind the register. Oh yeah, this is my guy, Chris Robson. He wrote this book back in 1947. He has up to date, right? I'll explain the story. I'll give their history, which draws interest, because the book is, they don't just buy this, they buy Chris, and they're not just going to buy your book, they're going to buy you, and they need to know who these writers are. And I think that that's where a lot of the store owners don't push the initiative for this strong Black talent that's out there.
I just want to say thank you to Joseph for creating cultivating a space for all these artists and creators to show their wares.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have it no other way. I wouldn't have it no other way.
All right. Do you feel pressure did you feel pressure in taking on that responsibility?
Actually, no. I've had people tell me things, like, why don't I do this? Why don't I do that? But I never really felt any pressure on it, because there's they're the method to my madness, and I tell people all the time, in order for me, like, I had a friend of mine ask me, like, why you don't push, more independent books. I was like, that's because I do it in a different way. I like, okay, I might buy 1,000 Marvel and DC books, so I'm not gonna tell people, come in here, I got these issues, come on, come in here and buy. That's what's gonna draw people inside the store. Now once they're in the store, I'm telling them about these guys stuff, you see, because Marvel and DC, they're gonna sell themselves, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna sell them, and now they got people coming in, oh, when is issue number 2 coming out, and I'm texting this guy, hey man, I need more books, everybody, mostly every independent artist or writer that's put a book in my store, I've never not have to buy that book more than, I think I've sold 100 of some people's books, 50, 60, because I move their books, because I care about their books. I care about their books going to Japan and Switzerland and Italy, because when I get summer travelers, that's where their books go, and that's because I push the initiative for these people's books to be seen and heard. So it's no pressure. I love it. I sell books, what I'm saying? That's what I do. I sell stuff. So I have no problem doing that.
All right. My next question is for the creators. Speaking of pressure again, how do you deal with the pressure of representing the Black experience in a single story? How do you approach cultural authenticity when you create these stories?
I think the most important thing to remember, to remind yourself, or remind myself, is that there, an infinite amount of experiences. We all have our own individual experience, and there are things that I can put on a page that I know will resonate with people who grew up in my neighborhood in New York, and somebody else who's Black who's in a different part of the country may not recognize that, and that's fine, because we all have a lot. We're all bringing something different to the table. So I think, don't put the pressure on yourself. Just be yourself and let that speak to who it speaks to.
So I don't think I see it as a pressure. I think it's like, I see it as a blessing. Feeling that I wouldn't say call it a pressure. It's like I guess an expectation, and that idea that I'm thinking about those little girls who are going to my show, who might see a character and be like, oh, she looks like me, and relate to my characters. Like, that excites me. I see it as something that motivates me, and then kind of like keeps me on my toes, because I'm thinking about, like, yeah, there's these gaps that need to be filled, and like these are the things that I wanted to read. And that's why I love coming to shows like these, Black Comics Day and Afrofuturism Lounge, that I get to see the reaction of Black people coming to see and read my stuff, and then coming back and telling me about the things that they liked about the book the next time I'm at the show. Like, for me, that's just a very vindicating experience. It's almost like a catharsis for me. So the pressure, it's kind of been there since I was a kid, but I've kind of reinterpreted that feeling as a motivation, as a thing that drives me, because it's a superpower. Honestly, that's the superpower of Black creators, is that we have a whole gamut of just stories and inspirations we can pull from, and so many people are hungry for it. And well, the pressure I feel mostly is that, being the pioneers of certain things, such as like Black manga, it's really not a thing right now. And some people might not be receptive to it, and that's something I've come to accept. But at the same time, I know that there are people out there who would want to read those stories and want to see themselves in manga. So that's kind of how I see that.
I was gonna lie and say there was no pressure, but I, like, when I first started, I think I was like trying to make sure I'm not like digging into like certain tropes, like the stereotypes that we see over and over again.
What are some of the tropes, if you don't mind?
I mean, how much time do we have? Like, there's like unintelligent, sexually driven, going for like the shiny things over like the substance, just so many. But then I was like when I started doing like all these different series, so like I have a book called Little Rock Files, and it's like a 80s noir detective story. And one of my good friends that might be in here at his table right now, me and him, we always like share stuff early, like read this, let me know what you think.
Mhm.
And he was like, man, this is dope. This might be one of my favorite things you ever wrote. But I didn't really feel like there were any positive, like black male role models in this one. And I was like, well, this is what the story is. If you want to see positive black role models, read Tuskegee Airs or Bridges or one of these other things that I did, because I'm telling like a lot of, like a lot of different stories, and they cross over genres. So I think it's always being done with care. I'm not looking at it through like an oppressor's gaze or a white centric gaze. Um, so even if I have this guy that might be, a bad dude, he's still going to have character. He's still going to have like real people emotions. You know what I mean? So I like to put a little bit of pressure on myself when I'm crafting stories, because I'm always thinking of giving like a full experience. And in the beginning, it was more like, nope, all our girls are going to be modest and they're not going to, and it's like, you get to a certain point where it's like, man, this stuff is cool, but it's, some of it's not like digging deeper or cutting. So, but, I got stories for everything.
Right.
So sometimes
awesome.
you're going to get a little crazy.
Right. Speaking about like a spectrum, when it comes to Afrofuturism, I mean, you have, the technologically advanced, science fiction type of deal, fantasy. You have the ideas of, Sankofa going back to, improve the future. Are there any other concepts that you want to sort of bring about for the general public for their general knowledge?
Me, yeah. Like I'm always thinking of different stuff. So I wish Marcus Williams, Marcus the Visual is his stage name. I wish he was here, because with Tuskegee Airs, he's the technology nut, and he's just like, oh my god, we're gonna have these guns, and they're gonna have these cycle generators that are going, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, let's draw that, but as much as I do that, like I think about, there's like some stuff I don't want to say all the way, but some things that I'm working on with Jason Reeves right now. He's also in there, 133 Art. We have something that's like near and dear, and it's blending like a bunch of different elements. There's a little bit of horror.
Okay.
Comedy is something that I love. So, we're going to be unveiling that pretty soon. And yeah, it's just like people have asked me so many times, like, what's your favorite like genre? I'm like, I don't know. Like I just like writing, like telling these stories. So, but yeah, always looking to add, things that may not have been seen or may not be prevalent at the time.
Okay.
So with my work, I think it's been really hard to categorize. Like that's been one of my bigger problems, is figuring out how to categorize a lot of my work, because it is that bridge between sci-fi and fantasy, but without advanced technology. So that's why I use the word Afrocosmic, and I'm trying to introduce that when it comes to like pitching Deep Seeker, for example, because it is an homage to the fact that like a lot of indigenous societies, cultures had so much knowledge already about cosmos, space, time, and to this day, they're like archaeological marvels that people cannot discover because of colonialization and colonialism, and all that was erased and taken away. So we've lost a lot of that knowledge. But I think that's powerful to retrace and look back. Like, yeah, it's really interesting to look into the future for like how we can be advanced as people. But we were advanced people, and I think that's really great to explore. So that was a big driving inspiration, was like bringing space, bringing cosmology, specifically from specific tribes in Mali, North Africa, and how that was regulated, how that knowledge was passed down, those sort of like ancient maps, and like how festivals and they literally had seasons and festivals just celebrating cycles of like planets, and tribes that knew about Sirius A and Sirius B stars before Western scientists did. And this really inspired me a lot, like since I was a kid. And everything I write is in the same world, and in this, and also matriarchal, because we need to see more women in stories, and I wanted to explore matriarchies in fantasy, because I think we like to romanticize and normalize patriarchies a lot, specifically in fantasy. So the sci-fi element is like the cosmic element. but I also like darker edge things. I like tragedy, which is what I hear from a lot of people, and I like very dynamic casts, like that kind of like funny tit for tat. And I think I got that from a lot of my love for manga because I think they do a really great job of like capturing character dynamics and really interesting plots with that. So it's a really weird fantasy sort of slipstream surrealism slushy of a genre. So I just kind of say Afrocosmic.
I would say that I have not been able to do. I have not dabbled in sci-fi like that, yet, and I hope to in the future. Always creating, always coming up with new stuff, and I think that it's hard to kind of pin down a specific. I too have the same similar issue where I like so many different things, and even the things that I do, I feel don't even fit squarely in specific boxes anyway. So, that's I guess that's something I need to work on going forward.
Did you want to add anything to it, Joe?
I can. Well, I'll bring up a couple of writers who I know who are doing, like TJ Sterling is in there, and he has a book called Joystick Angels, and he's very sci-fi minded when he does stuff like that. Rodney Barnes, who's a horror writer, you'll see him writing stuff like Philadelphia, 30 Days of Nights. Yeah, but he's also known for writing the adaptations to The Mandalorian, to Ahsoka. He wrote The Inquisitors. So I just think it's all about your passion for that venture. I'm a Star Wars kid. My mom is a Trekkie, and I just think that if you're minded towards that, you can bring creativity upon that. And the talented thing about these writers of today is that they're not stuck in one dimension. They can say, okay, I'm gonna write a story that's grounded about the streets here, but I'm gonna take you guys into space here, but then I'm gonna go into mystic arts here, then I'm gonna go into medieval times here, then I'm gonna take you into the cosmos there, and that's just the innovative talent of what you have sitting at this table here. I just sell their stuff, I mean, I'm just getting their stuff in you guys' hands and stuff like that. But I'll be honest, I'm working on something I've been working on for years, so you'll hear my voice out there someday soon. But right now it's all about these young talents here, that what they're doing. And like I said, the mind is so powerful. That's why I said willpower and imagination, because you're constantly pulling stuff. You can be driving by something and the idea just comes to you like that. You can be looking at a picture, something like that, and you create a whole story arc. And that's the power of these minds with these story arcs, with these writers nowadays. They're just pulling stuff and they're just being creative with those things that they're pulling.
Joe, since you're the store owner in this group,
Okay.
how long have you had your store?
1 year.
1 year. Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
One super powerful year, folks. And I mean, I'm a believer. I believe in God, and I believe that God blesses you for things to happen at the right time. When I wanted to do this a few years ago, I don't think it was the right time. One, I didn't have the money. Two, I don't think things would have fell into place the way that they did, because the way that it happened was I opened up my store. A month later, I met a young lady, Cheyenne, the geek, and we filmed a TV show in my store within being open a few months. Then shortly after that, I met my content creator, Aaron Sermon, in which we started putting out amazing content. So in 4 months of me being open, I was already headed to 20,000 followers. I was getting 100,000 views on some of my videos and stuff like that. And I just grew a massive attraction of customers, which I'm so privileged to have inside my store, come and shop and support the business. Now, my customers know I'm nothing with them. I'm nothing without them, and I'm everything with them. And I treat them like that. Because service is I'm all about service. I want every customer to come into my store to feel appreciated, that every dollar counts towards growing the business, and that they matter. Another thing that we focus on going out to do in my business is that when I leave here, I got to prep next week. I'm going to one elementary school and I'm going to one middle school. I give away comics because at the end of the day, I'm creating that next generation of writers, artists, collectors, and readers. I want them to read comic books. I want them, because some kids, they don't want to read a book, but if you get them that comic book, they'll read that comic book. And what are they getting at the end of the day? They're getting great story arc. They're building their vocabulary up. They're learning to read. It's something that they're interested in. And some of them just want to be creators, read and write one day too. So you're building that bridge for them to move on. And that's Afrofuturism in my book, building that next generation of writers, artists, collectors, and readers. Yeah.
I have another question for you.
Oh,
Are you fearful of digital publishing, and what does your store look like in the next 10 years?
Well, somebody asked me that question already, so I got to answer for it. All right. I look at digital publishing like this. Okay. If I gave you a Hulk 181, this is a $4,000 comic book at its minimum. Would you want to read a $4,000 comic book?
Maybe one day.
Or would you prefer to read that book in a digital form?
Digital.
Okay, so technically, I look at digital as being necessary for things like that. There is a need for digital comics. Digital comics. I have about 1,000 digital comics in my library, but there are books that I don't plan on reading physically anymore. But there is nothing, folks, like that nostalgic grabbing and feeling and smelling the pages of an old comic, reading and opening up a book. Nothing will ever take away from that, because if it would have already done it. I mean, think about it like this. There's no more Hollywood videos or blockbuster videos when streaming. When the digital market takes over a certain platform, it's going to take over it, and there's going to be very little of it to see around. That has not happened to the comic book industry. People still want to read books, period. Manga, novels, anything. So if it would have done it, it would have already happened. So 10 years from now, as long as we stay minded where we are and grounded to a certain degree, I'll still be selling comic books to you guys.
Awesome. Open up to the creators. Going along the same 10 years, and Antoinette touched on the Black Panther just being the tip of the iceberg. Is there like a major theme or aesthetic shift you anticipate will influence, Afrofuturistic comic books and manga in the next 10 years or so?
I think that you're going to see a lot more international publishing. You know what I mean? Like more like we will be able to have I think a flattening of the market in terms of like, publishers from other countries, like, being able to, bring product to America and vice versa. I think that would be something that we're going to see, and that'll happen a lot in digital platforms because it's like the easiest, but also once that bears out into the into the physical market, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's, if I had to guess, I think that's something I'm thinking. Yeah.
So speaking of international markets, I think had I not come across the portfolio review I did with my editor with Viz Media, I probably would have self-published this, because I didn't think that manga, especially black manga, was something anyone in America was interested in at the time. And I know my stories are not commercial; they're rather niche, and it's a black story, so there's already so much out against me to begin with. So it was really just by chance that this new one-shot program opened up, Viz Media, spearheaded by Sasaki-san, and they were generally looking for young creators who wanted to tell new, fresh stories from fresh perspectives and bring it to the manga market. And their goal is to bring the manga market to the West, provide more opportunities for artists here, because we are one of the main consumers of manga. So it's great to see that there's opportunity for us to get our hands in the pot, because there's I have so many talented artists out there who I know do manga and don't have an opportunity to have their stories told. So I'd hope to see more of that happen. And I know a lot of other Japanese publishers are watching what Viz Media is doing. For example, Kodansha. They've hosted some Mochi Komis, which is a Japanese portfolio review, in New York last year. And they're assessing how it's going, like seeing people submit, how the one shots are doing. Every one shot that's published is up for serialization potential if they perform well. So if you like Deep Seeker, please do support it online, repost it. And then just to add to the digital platform part, these are actually published online as well in the Viz Media app, so you can actually favorite that as well. But I actually think a good example of what you were saying is during COVID, a lot of people thought that digital sales would skyrocket and then no one would want to read print anymore. It actually did the reverse. It actually elevated the desire to read more print books, and then the rise of book talk, which I'm iffy about, but it did elevate people's desire to go into Barnes and Nobles and read books, and the manga section in specific in Barnes and Nobles has expanded. So I second that. There's nothing like getting that physical proof, which is why I made sure to have physical copies today. It's just that nostalgic feeling, especially as a creator, to see your work in your hand. And off of that digital platform. I hope it's not going to leave anytime soon. But going to these events, going to stores like the Comix Den is how you can support that being maintained. Because I do think it's very important when it comes to supporting creators.
So I don't know if there's gonna be like one overarching theme. I think what we're seeing now is like segments, like niche, like more coming into play. So like I do a lot of like library visits and stuff in Atlanta, and like the kids, especially like the young middle grade, like all they want is manga. Like they don't care about us.
Right.
They care about you. They don't care about me at all. But like that's their bag. But like you go to these conventions and you see like so many different types of storytelling happening. So I think it's just like with everything. Now we have a ton of Black creators. Like when I first started doing comic conventions around like 2015, 2016, we would be like, it might be a convention where our table is the only table that's just got nothing but Black on it. Now you go to these shows and you see it like in the mainstream shows, New York Comic Con, you'll see a lot. And that's a beautiful thing. But what's going to happen now is like people are going to move, like some people are going to do, would you say cosmic? Afro cosmic, that's a beautiful term. I'm not going to steal it, but I'm going to tell people about it. So you have people like going in all these different directions. And I just think it'll get more segmented to where you'll see like Afro manga conventions and stuff like that happening. But all of it's good because it's all, us, getting our stories out and people supporting and reading.
Cool. I have a couple more questions, but in the interest of time, I was wondering if anybody in the audience had any questions? Sure.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, we're doing it. Like I know I am, and like other people are actively doing it. It's just a lot of times people are gonna go to the low hanging fruit. Like Joseph was saying. If The Walking Dead is out, people are gonna buy that. But yeah, we're putting those stories together. It's just a matter of continuing to put them out and getting them in front of the people. but it's happening.
So I write basically based off of what I love, what I loved reading growing up. It's been there since I was a kid, and for me that was movies like Treasure Planet, Sinbad, all the classic fantasy, sci-fi, Star Wars. I grew up watching those films, and I love adventure. That's another theme I forgot to mention that's very prevalent in my work is that sense of adventure and large casts. And it was reflected in a lot of books that I was reading, but as you mentioned, never any black people in those stories. So I just kind of bridged that which I loved and projected my own heritage, my culture, and the characters I wanted to see in those stories. And honestly, I don't see them being very commercial because I blend a lot of things, as I mentioned, and again, they're black characters. And then also I'm not, it's sci-fi, but without technology. So that's a little unconventional for some people to understand. But there's also a lot of, I think in terms of popularity, we're seeing a lot of horror becoming popular, I think, amongst black media, which I'm really happy to see. But popularity has never really been that much of a factor, which, some people would probably advise against. But I write what I want to read, I write what I love, because if I don't love what I'm writing, I can't finish the story and I'll just sit there.
Not to actually, because I know your point still stands, but I do want to point out there's an incredible isekai story where the main character is a black girl and she jumps into the body of her white crush. I forget if it's called Flip, and her name is something Ngozi. I forget. And then for zombie stories, everybody loves zombie stories. We mentioned him here. Rodney Barnes published a comic about a zombie outbreak in Flint, Michigan, called 20 Degrees Past Rigor. So my point is, you might have to dig a little deeper to find our stories because we don't have the full backing of all the stuff we were talking about earlier. So, this is going to be a 2-hand, 3-hand situation where we all need to help each other. But they're out there potentially, you know what I mean? But your point still stands. That's all.
Any other questions? Yes.
So I'm curious. First of all, thank you for the wonderful session. And next, I was wondering what you all thought about black and specifically Afrofuturistic art, not just for like storytelling, inspiring the next generation of black scientists, engineers, painters, creators, and maybe how it ties into like things like, for example, solar, the idea that like the future can be bright and hopeful, and like how that can be used actually to encourage people to uplift people, etc.
I think that telling our stories and putting ourselves out there is a big part of that, right? In terms of the inspiration, but I have not been able to do stories in those genres yet. So maybe these guys have a better, more something else to say.
Well, I think you touched on a good one, which is I think the act of writing storytelling is part of that movement, and that's how legacies are built is through those stories that are left behind and that we pass on to the next generation, the characters that stay with us. Like, for example, I think Jordan Peele's Get Out, that started a movement through that story of what the possibilities of black horror is, because we thought we saw all there was to horror. Everyone felt like, okay, there's these tropes, horror has these plot beats, we follow that, and then Jordan Peele took that and he applied the black lens to it, and all of a sudden people are like, whoa, what is this? This is like a whole new thing. And now Ryan Coogler's doing his own take with like the success with Sinners, and then obviously Black Panther. So through storytelling, I think we can see those movements happen, and through the support of our communities showing up and investing in these stories, I think is also a big part of it. But also art, I think, is such a powerful tool, because I'm an artist writer, but I actually have a stronger background as an artist. So writing came second, and then through manga, I was able to bridge it. And that was just like the beautiful marriage of two creative pillars in my life. And I think seeing that impact on people is what starts those movements. And sometimes it's just not intentional. You're just out to just tell a story that you love. and you can't predict who will resonate with it, whose life will change because they watched Sinners and didn't realize that black people could be vampires. So it's really just going out about it, doing what you love, and I think you'll find your tribe, and it moves from there.
Awesome again. This last year I got to participate in Durham, North Carolina. They did a Afrofuturist Day, and they paid us, a bunch of us, to come out, and we presented. We had panels, and it was amazing. Like, because we had historians there that were going through, and like they're bringing up like musicians, James Brown and Parliament and Stevie Wonder. Like, these people were envisioning the future, before a lot of us were born, and it kept going, like through Outkast, Andre 3000, like all these people. And so when you really look at how it's impacted everything, whether it's like sports, like it's just such a big, it's a big thing to handle. So it's like when you really dig in and you look, whether it's sculpture, like you said, art, it's just everywhere. And all of it, I would like to believe that all of it is like inspiring somebody, maybe a little kid, like, oh, I like to sculpt, I like to make music. So it's just everywhere. I love it, and I just hope it, stuff like this, can spawn more and more of it.
I guess we got time for one more question.
Are you talking about Ghost? Are you talking about, that's what, I didn't say that, she said. What, Whoopi Goldberg and oh wow. Oh, okay.
Oh. Is there one more question from the audience? Yeah.
I short circuited. I'm sorry.
It was coming.
It was coming.
Don't look at me. No, yeah, it's kind of like a forbidden, like in our world, it's kind of a forbidden topic to touch. The realistic part of it is that it's being integrated to almost every other facet of life, right? Like, I've seen like people that I know that have created children's books with AI, and it's like, I know you very well. I know you can't draw, so you created this and you're selling it or whatever, and it's like, I make children's books, I pay artists, I write them myself. So the tool part, that is something, if you're old enough to have been around when music went digital, there was a lot of people that were like, oh, this is going to destroy our industry. No, I didn't have to pay $500 an hour to go to some janky studio and hope this dude knows how to mix. You know what I mean? Now I can try this stuff on my computer at home. And then it ended up taking over, and now you hardly see anybody making like analog music, right? So I understand that part, but as far as like the part where you're utilizing it to create art, whether that's written or, that's just weird to me. I can't draw to save my life. So I pay artists lots of money to create the stuff that I do. But I feel good about myself at the end of the day, right? I think I would feel like crap if I'm like, make a coming, I just feel like, but certain things would maybe one day like as far as like copy editing, if you self-publish, then you understand how difficult that can be. No, I'm not saying I will. I'm just saying there are certain things that I might be like, oh, you're an editor, so never mind. I'll never do that in my life. I'm an editor too. But I know it's like, okay, you're gonna take some money out of somebody's hands. But there are certain things I think that is going to be inevitable. Like I was in corporate America for way too long, and I still have friends. I talk to them, and they're like, "Yo, man, we have to use it for this. We have to." And so, like I said, we're the only ones that are like, we ain't doing it. But there's some people out there doing it anyway. Like,
I can add something to that. Okay. Well, I'm gonna give you some stories I heard from some comic book artists and just give you some history upon that. There was one artist that got fired for doing an AI cover to a Superman book. The cover was obviously done AI and it was discovered, and the guy ended up losing his job for that. So you can get in big trouble by being somewhat of a authentic artist and try to use that as a cover up. But I was just talking to artist by the name of Stephen Plack. He's a screen artist. He does a lot of storyboard art and stuff like that, and he's big in Marvel and Image, and he was telling me about some artists, the difference between an artist that may use AI. So what some artists are doing nowadays is it depends on the flow of their hand, because they're primarily using some AI technology to ink in stuff, not their art. They're drawing it still, but they may end up using AI to fill in the gaps. But can they resell those authentic pages? No, they cannot. They're not worth anything compared to when that artist, because there's a difference between the way an artist will draw for an inker. Like if an artist is drawing something and another inker, like you ink my art, I'm going to add different lines and stuff like that so you can depict my art to almost its exact duplicate of way I draw. That's why sometimes a good writer and a good artist is like a perfect chemistry, a perfect connection. And so you got to think about it. AI takes away from the art being authentic or being original. I mean, sometimes you can screw something up and you can have, you can put a dot of whiteout on that and turn it into smoke or something like that. And AI can't do that kind of stuff. And I just think that as long as the creative mind, again, stays there, our artists, we can't allow that to happen to like great artists that are out there really doing hard work out there.
So I come from a fine art background, meaning I use my hands to draw, and I had very rigorous training in traditional art. So that was before I even touched tablets. I mean, now I use those, but that was my background. So for me, like, art and writing is just such a natural part of the human experience. It's liberating. I think it's almost sin to think that artificial intelligence can replicate that, because it's such a huge part about being human. And there are people online calling themselves AI artists, and I think it's a shame because you lose that opportunity to improve. Artists draw. If you want to be an artist, you draw. That's how you learn. That's how you get better. And I think there's a lot more valuable things AI could be doing to help people than trying to steal jobs from artists. So, and it's not even just art; it's writing. It's sort of like a virus that's just seeping into every industry right now. So it's part of what we have to deal with, which is why it's important to support artists who are at events like this, and artists who are not supporting AI as well. So that's my take, is like, I don't support artificial intelligence. I don't encourage it for someone who wants to do like art or covers, because just a little story, my dad's a painter, and he does this thing where sometimes when he paints, the thistle from the brush will get stuck in the painting, and it's part of his signature. And that's something AI cannot replicate, because I actually have an eye and I can spot something that's AI, and it sort of tries to do this thing where it's perfect. And the human hand is not intended to be perfect, because I think it's a part of the flaw is what makes things so unique and part of that artist's style. And I think AI is not really unique to that, and I don't think it should be. So that's my take.
One question. One more question. Okay. Yes.
I know a lot of AI and writing stuff like that. How about like you guys see the future that your stories are basically like social media stories or companies that basically AI writing that so like AI not only the writing type AI, the actual like 3D type AI. You think your stories will evolve that?
I don't think so. I think human artists are can do all the things that AI would do, and there's no really reason. I've yet to hear an ethical way to implement AI. So I would love to see my work adapted in other formats and get it out to people who books are not their thing and they want to rather watch something or listen to something, whatever. But yeah, I don't think I need AI to help me do that.
Basically, we're down with AI. No,
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. It's like it's cutting a lot of costs, but it's cutting a lot of people out of the process, right? So it's like I know kids who went to school and they got their degrees to learn how to animate, and they put all this time in, and then I would just feel like personally, I guess because we're so entrenched into this, I would just feel like crap, like oh, I got video, like and I feel like it's in a way it's cheating, and then there's proprietary issues with it, right? Because they typically what it's doing is it's pulling from every whatever its database is, right? So if it's pulling from some art that Ray did, and I'm calling you out. If it's pulling from or some writing that Antoinette did, then it's just like a hodgepodge to get there. I have a friend, he works with one of the companies, and he said they're working on some stuff where, not saying Ray would do it, but he could dump all of his own art into a machine, and then it's only going to pull and reference him and his own art, and that's still cheating. Because now he doesn't have to. He spent all this time to become a master of his craft, and now all he has to do is, yeah. So it's a microwave thing that you can't really get away with in a lot of different parts of the art world. It's I don't know. Like I said, you're gonna see more, like we call them civilians, more people that haven't busted their butt for decades to learn how to do this. They're gonna be the ones that's jumping in and doing it. But like us, we're just gonna be like soggy and mad. But we'll at least have our honor, like integrity, right?
All right. I guess that's our time. Thank you so much for joining our panel, and a big round of applause for our panelists. Also to Keith and Jones, the organizer of Black Comics Day, and also to Makeda, who runs the Worldbeat Center.
We have tables? Everybody have tables?
Yeah.
Okay, so y'all can come in, check us out at your leisure, or at least before 6 o'clock. And we have stuff you can look at if you want to purchase or just talk more about this stuff. We'd love to. I don't know everybody here that well.
And also,
yeah.
it's called Black Comics Day, but it's actually 2 days, so come back tomorrow as well.
Yeah. Also, Chris, can you get a job back with Marvel and let me do voices one time? Because I really was trying to never mind.
Why don't you let everybody?
But it won't be mine.
Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you online?
Oh, Tuskegee Airs. I have a website called Platform L7. Amazon. You can buy some of this stuff on Amazon as well. So yeah.
Okay, and for the Comic Den, you guys can go on to the comicdenllc.com. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, and we would love to add you to our Comic Denizen list. And you can also go to the comicden.com and order comic books, and we'll ship them out to you.
Broken Chalice Studios, we have a booth here at Black Comics Day. We're all the way at the back. And we only have 20 copies of Deep Seekers, and this is our first debuting them, so get them while they're hot. And if you like them, you can download the app, add it to your favorites, leave comments online to help support its serialization potential. And we also have a website, so come by. We'll talk about the books that we have, and thank you all.
Are you a publisher like?
My website is crob.info, CROB.info.
Around this.
Yep, I get everything there. Thanks.